What have we learned about effective workspace design?
Oh, that's a great question. I think effective workspaces really mean things are not separated into silos. So if you look at like a workspace in the 70s or 80s, it was really dedicated conference room, that's a teaming room, that's our training center. If you look at what's happening at Mersive even, we have a yoga studio that becomes an actual place where we do work together. We push the tables back together and have a formal meeting. That's also our video conferencing room. So you can't have a dedicated codec in a room that gets the door locked at night and no one uses it unless there's a special call. Things have changed dramatically that way. So huddle rooms are no longer just separate huddle rooms. I have a huddle space in my office. My office acts like a huddle space when my team comes in, we have a meeting. That means non-dedicated software, non-dedicated hardware. It really has to be flexible to the user's needs throughout the day.
Is it too fluid?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if that would happen, I believe people would stop doing what they're doing. So I've actually seen some of the Fortune 50s having meetings in stand-up hallways now. So screens on a wall, maybe they're playing signage, two people come out into the transitional space and say, hey, that was interesting what you were showing in that room, can we look at it? Now because companies like us that have gotten rid of that cable, you can then share your tablet to that wall and have a quick ad hoc, let's get something done in 60 seconds and go back to work. That to me is when I saw that event happen, it's so dramatically different than I sent you an Exchange calendar invite, we wait a week, we show up, one of us stresses about wiring up the room, you come, we have a very 60-minute planned PowerPoint. That stuff's going away really dramatically.
Is there any best practice we can apply to workspace design?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got to embrace the fact that you have flexibility throughout your day. So if you're designing a space, you should consider the needs for the space. I met with a really good pharmaceutical company a while ago, and they had some really interesting observation. Flexibility is great, but the end user has to know the use of the space when the time arrives. So if I'm walking by a soft armchair, I have to know that's a space for me to collaborate in an ad hoc way with my colleagues. If I see a room that has, hard-backed chairs like this, I know that that's a conference room center and I can have a long-term, maybe a more formal meeting. If you try to mix the two, turns out their usage goes way down. So I'll give you an example. They had a room that had no door on it, but solid chairs, hardwood table, front display on the, didn't get used because that open door policy doesn't match a formal meeting space. You added a door and suddenly it's used, and they've seen the vice versa too.
Is workspace design more psychology than technology?
It's a bit like what we were talking about before. There's this whole field called human-computer interaction. And it's really, if you think about it, it's technology interaction with humans. It's not just computers these days. It's all the technology landscape. There's that really exciting area where you have technologists asking questions about how can technology enable human behaviors. So that means you have to understand psychology. So if I develop a product that says, you're having a great meeting, you're doing a human-centered collaboration, and suddenly we start talking about, Chris's technology, that's bad. The technology's not enabling us to be who we want to be, how we want to behave. I think it is, it's exciting, because you see those two things collide.
Are requirements brought to you by consultants or creative agencies?
That's a great question. It's kind of a mix, to be honest. I have some consultants that are fantastic. We run a consultant event once a year where we get together and go, what does the future look like? Where are you guys seeing things change in the workspace? How can we help? They definitely are trying to lead the charge, but end users have started to bring in-house experts. There are named things like, collaboration specialist. There's actually psychologists I've met that design color, ambient energy, temperature changes throughout the day to enable certain kinds of behaviors. It's unbelievably exciting. I think it's cool.
Is there a role for experiential design companies?
I think there is, but the danger is at the handoff between the high-end design and experiential design company, and the integrator doesn't want to be left holding a bag. It's like, we don't get it. What are we supposed to do here? And also, I want to provide value there as well. So the best are when those things become partnerships. So you've got consultancy, you've got design experience designers kind of doing those handoffs smoothly as partners rather than, stages in a development cycle. That doesn't work so well.
It's no longer about straight sales, is it? It's about understanding the solution that you're selling into.
It is. We got drugged there, to be honest. We were really hard focused on I want to get my data into the meeting and have a short, focused, let's get things done, make it enjoyable, make it engaged so that you feel like you're a part of the meeting. I think we got that, but what happened is users said, well, now we have your box in the room for a reason. So why can't you do signage? How do you tie it into video conferencing? All these things, can you do whiteboarding? That's how we invented ink. How can you do other things now that you're in the room? That makes us more of a platform. The good news is, though, I'm not going to add more hardware. I'm not going to do a daisy chain of hardware components in the space. That's the old way of thinking. We have to put it all in this one elegant sort of single user experience.
Is AV capable of creating great workspaces, or are we expecting too much of it?
Well, the channel's doing it for us, so that's good. And I think there are other companies that are looking at this space increasingly so as a viable alternative. So we use Qualcomm, for example. I'm working with Qualcomm. They're getting educated on Pro AV. They were like, we're very interested in what's going on over there because it's becoming an IoT environment. It's becoming a software-driven environment. Can Qualcomm, which you would think is, well, that's full-on software and IT, can they play a role here? I think they can. I think we can become a merged community.
How much of impact will new and emerging technologies have on workspace design?
I actually think in this space in particular, things like rental and staging and experience AV might make its way into the more common workplace. I don't know what it would quite look like yet, but there are hints. So I've worked with some guys, I can't name where this lab is, where they're doing projection mapping at a cost that will blow your mind away. So imagine sitting in a lobby and you've got, experiences changing, like what plants are in that potter, or what am I seeing on this table right here? I'm curating an experience like I would at a giant staged concert that came out of this space, but I'm putting it somewhere new. I think that's the next 5-6 years, you'll start to see that.
Is the kit really up to the job of creating the experience we need?
Not quite yet. No, there's some core problems there. Some mathematics actually that still need to get figured out, but as soon as that happens, you'll see it. It's called a technology inversion, where you have amazing technology, but it's really, really expensive. Like if you go to the Christie booth, you'll see amazing projection mapping, right? Super expensive and valuable. Every one of us is blown away by it. As soon as it becomes available, you're going to want it. So that's the technology inversion, where suddenly it gets flipped and it appears everywhere. And it's like, where did this come from? You'll have people that don't know anything about AV going, wow, where did they invent this? Well, it's been in AV for decades, right?
What makes companies adopt new technology? Do you need to be a bit maverick to take that sort of risk?
I think the problem has been actually that there's two ways to adopt technology. There's the top-down. My consultant told me a systems engineer drew a box here and it shows up in the room. Or there's grassroots. And if you can get grassroots to start and then the consultants to go, what's happening here? This is a trend. Let's put this in the next plan because we understand it. Now we get what's going to happen. It becomes really powerful. That's kind of what happened with us, to be honest. We were too small of a company to have grown like we have if it was only us adopting the channel adopting us. That's a great thing that's happened, but the end users have just blown it up. I mean, I get calls from people that will say, like a big defense contractor, it's one of our customers, says, literally, he'll call my cell phone and go, what have you done? The 4.0 release means I've got to go back and install everywhere because everyone's demanding it. His own end users, right? It didn't come from my channel partners saying, you better deploy more pods. It's really end users, because you got to get the end user experience right, and then it happens.
What's the most important thing you've been looking at?
Well, I've sort of let the cat out of the bag today. We've spent 5-6 years focusing on the in-room collaboration experience. How do we have a great meeting? What I'm now interested in is the unified communication space, because I think it has some very fundamental problems. And in fact, if I worked in that space, I would admit it, right? Like, one of them is no room is agnostic almost by definition, because it has to curate a single user experience. So what users want is not that. They want a single user experience, but for it to work with everything. And I think we're going to crack that nut with the help of some of our partners in that space and launch something amazing. So I'm giving teasers, and I've got a consultant event, you mentioned the consultants, tonight, where they're going to get to see it, and we're all going to work together around cocktails. What does this mean? What are we going to really do with this thing? And when we launch it early next year, I think it will change a lot. It'll change a lot about how you think about video and voice in the huddle rooms, how content should be viewed inside of a call. What's the seamless linkage between how we work together when we're face-to-face versus when you're not face-to-face? Shouldn't that be the exact same thing? I actually think it should, for sure.